The school has grown a great deal. I've been gratified to see that because I think, when you look at the small picture here, you're on the campus, you're dealing with associates and people you work with every day here and students you see every day. But you're really part of a bigger mosaic that is very, very important for this country. And I don't overstate that. I'm not blowing a lot of smoke in your direction just because I happen to be here with you this evening. Our country is so unique and depends on for long-term survival. Our country literally depends on people being active in civic service and being willing not only to work in our political parties, but run for office sometime and all the other parts of this, but it's not required, just so long as you're interested and you're doing things in your community. That's the most important thing. And that's unique. You don't find it to that extent in other nations. Because of circumstances, Amy and I have been fortunate to travel to many, many nations in the world. You don't see the same kind of engagement around this world among the average citizens. And we've had eras in the past of we call it the Spanish century or the French century, as they were in the ascension and took over the central role in international affairs. And you could look at a time when trade was expanding, the Netherlands led the world, and so on down the line. Now we've come to a time period that is very, very different. It's a time period when we're back in international competition again. It's a time when I think our efforts at whether we're going to be civically engaged or not, and whether everybody's going to participate in our society, will be the determining factor in how we fare over the next 50 or 100 years even. And nothing guarantees that this country will be in the #1 position that it has been in. Well, we get to make our own decisions as to what we want to do in the future and what our future may be. And that's what that kind of leadership does. I think there are two things I thought led to our American preeminence in the past. I've talked to some of you about this before. I think there were two very basic elements or characteristics of what made this country great or led us into a leadership position in a very tiny little time frame in history. And the first thing was education. In this country, every person was important. Every person deserved the same kind of opportunity. Every person deserved an education. That was something new. Back in those days in the 1700s, that was brand new. There would be a society developed in this world where each person was an important factor. And that fed over into the education system. And you're good examples of that. This is a land-grant college from back in the early days. Showed the importance that was given to education. And so this nation, back almost from its founding days, was a nation that was the best educated general citizenry of any nation that had ever been in history. So that was one factor. The second factor was we were a curious, questing people. We were curious about the new and the unknown. We did more research and innovation. We learned those new things. Then when you made a breakthrough in science or research, there was this educated citizenry that was standing behind it. They're ready to be the workers or the people that put that forward. Little investment. And wow, we led the world in brand new industries. And now in our time, I guess we would call this something brand new entirely. Is not a time when we're doing exploration like Lewis and Clark to the West Coast or something like that. Now the time period is different, and you are far more expert in this area than I am by far. And we're in the information age. Like the Arab Spring, had we not had cell phones and people were able to communicate with each other and things like that. So it's a whole time period that you're getting into that's brand new. So I guess what I'm leading up to is this: you can have leadership positions in this. And that's what your training here is teaching you how to do, is to have leadership positions in these new areas where you can help determine your own future. And that's the most important part about it. We haven't learned how to deal with this yet. And we haven't learned how to deal with some of the dissident elements in the world either. We have Al-Qaeda and so on that doesn't wish us well. And how do we deal with this? Because it's not, we used to have a war or something and you knew it was government to government, and you marched into a foreign country and you took it over and that was it. And now the threat to the country is not that way. It's not it's not something where people are government to government. Non-government organizations are now the ones that are doing the terrorist acts and so on that give us the most trouble. The World Trade Center in New York, 9/11 and things like that were not government to government. They were separate organizations. And so the point is we need new thinking in how we deal with these things. And that's the reason that you're being involved with these things and being willing to study the policy matters are so important. We have a whole host of things in this presidential year, and these things will be debated through the fall and up to the election. I deplore some of the tactics already being used on both sides in this election period. I wish we had more concentration on some of these issues that are going to determine the kind of world that you live in 25 or 50 years from now. So my congratulations to all of you as you've taken a leadership position. I hope many of you will run for public office sometime. I'm sure you will. But whether you ever decide to do that or not, I think it's incumbent on every single citizen of this country, every young person, to have an interest in politics, have an interest in government, have an interest in expressing your opinions in these areas of whether it's healthcare or whatever the issue may be, or military use, or how can we deal with these non-government threats that we find now that we haven't yet really learned how to deal with yet. So those are the positions you can move into. I think the figures are around 40% of our public workforce, if you combine the local, state, and federal. I think about 40% of that workforce turns over in the next 10 to 12 years. So in that area, there will be a lot of opportunities for some of you if you wish to get into government service at whatever actual work in government activities yourself. And so there will be opportunities for you like that. I hope that you some of you at least will avail yourselves of that. Washington program has been mentioned here this evening. I think the figures are that about 22% of the people who have gone through that WAIP program, the Washington Internship Program as we call it, 22% of the people have been interested enough that once they graduate, they went back in and actually are working in government, not necessarily in exactly the same job that they had as an intern in there, but through contacts that were made, they are working in those areas of government and really working on helping to determine and being the staffers and the people that put together all the data that is needed to make these public affairs become things that are public policy matters, make them thoroughly studied and make them available for decision making that will be for the benefit of everybody. So my congratulations to all of you for being willing to work as you are in this area of learning more about leadership and skills and studying policy matters. Some of you are having co-degrees in other areas also, and that's great. I think it's a wonderful program in that regard. So it's developed well, and Tori, where are you back here? You good. She'll do well. She's from New Concord. So you were what, the 200th person to sign up? I think it's great, and I'm proud you're here from New Concord. And so anyway, congratulations to all of you, and good luck to you, and a pleasure.